Project Creator is proudly hosted on Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard of Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's free. There are free creation tools to help you record and edit, and Anchor will distribute your podcast for you to Spotify, Apple Podcast, and so many more. Best of all, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started on your podcast today. Thank you for listening to Project Creator. My guest today is a good friend of mine, Chris J. Asher. Chris is a business owner, a digital web designer, a podcaster, a stand-up comedian, and a YouTube content creator. But just how many channels does Chris actually have? Stick around to find out, because the answer might surprise you. More so, how he uses YouTube to further his creation goals. If you'd like to be a guest on the show and share your creator story with the world, please get in touch. And if you'd like to support the podcast, I invite you to visit the Patreon link in the description below. And of course, I would appreciate your support. And Chris, thank you so very much for joining me here on Project Creator. How are you, my friend?
Thank you. Very good. I'm well. Sit down, everybody. Sit down. There's no need for that. I didn't know it was going to be live, Dennis. I didn't think we were doing this in front of a live audience. You've really thrown me a curveball.
Wow, that's like more listeners than I have had on this podcast at one time. That's pretty impressive, actually.
Congratulations on a record turnout.
Well, I had to book the right guest, apparently. Nobody else came with a cheering section. Outstanding. Yeah. So for those of you who are wondering, this is Mr. Chris J. Asher. Chris and I have been, friends, comrades, what's the word? Like contemporaries, colleagues. Oh, I like that one. Colleagues. Probably since about 2017, I think. Does that sound about right?
Probably around then. I think I started my channel in 2016, mid 2016. So yeah, probably a bit into it, maybe 2017.
And you are like, I think I hope every creator out there is blessed with the opportunity to have a network of contemporaries and colleagues around them, right? You are one of my like key people that I need to talk to every once in a while about what we do and all of that. And you have had some really awesome conversations over the years.
Likewise. Which
logistically is super interesting to me because I'm in Rochester, New York, and you're in Melbourne, Australia. So
yeah.
The 14-hour time difference, like I'll have it straight in my head for a while, and then we won't talk for a bit, and I'll be like, what freaking time is it where Chris is right now? Should I call him? I don't even know if he's awake. Is it the middle of the night there? I don't know. What's happening? I lose track very, very easily.
Yeah, well, it's, for the listeners, let's give them some context. What time is it where you are right now?
Oh, right. It's 7 p.m. on Friday night.
And it's Saturday morning, 9:05 a.m., and I've got my cup of coffee.
Beautiful. And I'll tell you, that also blows my kids' minds. They can't fathom that it's tomorrow. And so like one of my boys was like, can you have Chris tell us the future and like what's happening tomorrow?
Pretty similar to yesterday, only less work because it's the weekend. There you go.
Ah, fantastic. Even better.
Day off for a lot. Maybe not for you. I don't know. You work weekends, don't you?
Oh, it sucks. I work Saturdays. I know. I've always worked Saturdays, but that's okay. It's fine. It is what it is. So let's talk about you for a bit before we talk about us. You have a self-titled YouTube channel, which
I regret.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know many people that have done that, but I've always thought it was a very bold and confident thing.
Too bold, too confident. I've lost confidence and now regret ever naming my channel after my real name.
Okay, so then tell me that story. What's the genesis?
Because I'm a business owner, and if you look me up and you're another company, I do business to business work. So if you look me up and you're another company, you can find my horrendous comedy sketches and whatnot. You know, like I should just be on LinkedIn in a suit. That's all I should be. But I'm very much not.
But you're on YouTube.
Yeah.
That bastion of professionalism known as YouTube. So I guess, and you've probably told me this story privately, right, at some point in the past, but I'm curious to hear what started it. Why in the world did you ever open a YouTube channel? What was the impetus there?
Oh, man. Which one? I was thinking about that this morning. I think I've counted 8.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
At all.
Run through
I had no idea. Yes. Why are we here? You're my guest.
Some of them only have one video on them. So that's okay. The thing. Yeah.
Did that count? Does that really count as a channel if there's only one video?
Well, you decide. All right. Okay. So, channel the first, Mechanism Trance, which was my music back in the 2000s. I did psychedelic trance music, so I'd have videos of some gigs and stuff that I was doing and all of that sort of stuff. So there's a few videos up there. It wasn't something that I really considered a channel, but I wanted to make it like because I was into web development and getting into all of that, like tried to optimize it and all of that sort of thing so that, you know, people would be able to find it and it'd get views. So I guess it's a channel.
From a very technical standpoint, yeah, absolutely. You went after all of those little pieces of what's supposed to build a successful channel.
Yeah. But not really. Like it was inconsistent. It was just, I had some footage of a gig. I'll pop that up on there and post it to maybe. Where would I have posted it to? Maybe MySpace back then?
That was about all there was, honestly. Before YouTube, there was just MySpace. There was no Facebook. Yeah. There was no Vimeo. Wasn't there? I think that was the only game in town.
Yeah, just post it there, and so that's that one. Then the next one, let me see. Okay, so then channel the second, I think was for a podcast that I did in 2014 that I started. And we'd just post some clips up from there, trying to get more listeners. I'm not going to say what the podcast was. It was pretty horrendous. But it was sort of like my first step into like comedy. So that was like when I was like, okay, I want to do comedy. How do I start? Well, let's just have a podcast and see what happens from there. I don't know. But we were getting like a few hundred listeners per episode and stuff. So not big or anything, but like not to no one kind of thing. Because it's really hard to grow a podcast. It's really hard to grow a podcast, like especially
as I'm learning. Yes,
yeah, it is so hard because there's no. And so we're probably going to go off on tangents all the way through this.
Of course we are.
I apologize to our listeners.
No, not at all.
The problem with podcasts is you don't have a single platform that you run it on, like YouTube, that recommends things. I mean, you kind of do maybe with Stitcher and stuff like that, but it's not like YouTube where you really have an opportunity to optimize things and work with the algorithm to get views and all of that sort of stuff. You've just kind of got to go, here's my podcast, share it to as many people as you can. Maybe they'll like it and share it. It's like, it's a much more organic thing. There's some things you can do at the start when you're launching, like having releasing multiple episodes really quickly at the start, so that you can get on like the new thing on Apple. But that's about it, you know.
That's I guess I started to go down the path of thinking that, well, yeah, but doesn't, at least nowadays, doesn't Apple and doesn't Spotify really occupy that space? But when I think about that, they don't give you any opportunity to influence anything about how it's just an aggregate.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how all of that that sort of stuff works. I think building a good website to go with it probably,
Mhm.
and optimizing that website for people who are like just Google searching, oh, what's a podcast on content creation or whatever.
And then podcasts too. I mean, you said you started that in 2014. I can tell you in 2014, podcast definitely wasn't on my radar. I think I remember somebody I knew had gotten a little iPod and was like talking about how they're putting these talking episodes on there, and I thought that's really weird, but that was then. So I got the sense then, and as we walk through the various channels, you've kind of, I get the sense that you've been a little bit of a pioneer in your own right. Like you've been trying to be there and take advantage of these different mediums at the moment that they were getting popular.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
I really wouldn't go that far.
Was it just a happy accident? Was it just a twist of fate?
Well, I feel like I could say that if I had a hugely successful podcast, because then I'd be like, yes, I did. I was one of the first to, but podcasts had been around for ages since then, like for as long as the iPod.
Right.
So it's kind of like, it wasn't as easy. Like I don't remember the exact details, but definitely like 2006-ish, somewhere around there. Yeah, they've been around for a long time.
I apparently was just living in a cave.
Well, you had to have an Apple product.
Right. Oh yeah, that's true. That is very true. I mean, I was living in a world during those years, 2006, 7, all the way through 2012. I was living in a live stream Wild West. We were hand coding TCP/IP protocols.
Live streams only just started becoming like popular in the last couple of years.
Sure.
So when you tell me, oh, you sort of pioneered this, like you were early adopter or whatever. Well, have a look at you. Around then you're doing it live. What did you do? You had servers that you had to, like, all this technical stuff that you had to figure out, and
right.
It's like, Tom Green. Do you know Tom Green?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was one of the first to do a live internet TV show from his lounge room.
Yep, that was big talk in my day.
Yeah,
big talk.
And like having a look at like, because he's a real tech nerd, so he had to figure it out himself as well. You don't expect someone of that status to be like, okay, I'm going to get down on my hands and knees and build a server in the pantry or whatever, so that I can figure out how to make this show work. Like, but that's what he was into, like figuring all of that stuff out.
It feels like so much of a missed opportunity too, because we all most of us stopped right as like we did, like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. We're not breaking into the FM market. We're not stealing listeners from iHeartRadio. We don't have these apps the way they have. It's like, okay, we're not going to be able to compete here.
But I think what was it you did? Your first episode was a lot about staying power.
And the gentleman who was the guest, Kenny C, he was my Chris Asher 15 years ago. We were competitors for a little bit at first. We were both competing for the same time slot on Saturday nights, and
okay.
But we grew a respect and friendship for each other, and we cross-pollinated our viewers and listeners, and
that's awesome.
That guy's still going, for crying out loud. 14 years, he's still going. I'm in awe. That's why I had him on as the first guest, because I'm just in awe of what he accomplished.
Yeah. So, that's the thing. It's like it's so hard. It's so easy to get disheartened along the way. It's more likely that you'll get disheartened along the way. That's just the sad truth of it, right?
Yeah, it's a harsh reality, but
also, yeah, but it's also like, this is the difference between like doing the type of creation that you're really passionate about and that you have time to do, It's like a balancing act. You got to have the time, you got to have the passion, and the resources, all of that sort of stuff, obviously. But like it has to come easily. You can't, like, when I say easily, it can't be a massive effort that ends up just going, you know what, I can't. Like your passion has to outweigh the effort involved. So
right.
The more passionate you are about it, the more effort you'll put into it.
Because otherwise it drains you. Otherwise, it absolutely takes everything you've got and makes you. I remember different times over the years that I found myself momentarily resentful of the efforts that I had put into some of these projects because they didn't deliver. And I thought, well, then the hell with you.
Yeah, like it's a roller coaster of emotions. It's like you have good times, you have like frustrating times, all of that sort of thing. Which let's bring us to my third channel.
In the royal lineage, as we've got Chris Asher the Third.
This is where the addiction started to kick in.
Okay.
This is when Chris J. Asher was made. So my YouTube channel, Chris J. Asher, is actually, you know what? I still post to it when I can. Mm-hmm. I literally just do it whenever I can, if I want to. It just like whatever. But that channel was always the experimental channel, actually, because it was like the learning channel for me. It was a learning project. This is when I went, okay, I'm going to make content. Like the podcast, I didn't really consider that as, we're making content. Kind of did. A mate of mine, the podcast came about because a mate of mine wanted to do a YouTube channel, and I said that's too much effort because I know I'm going to do all of the work. So instead of that, let's just do a podcast because it's voice only. Oh, perfect. And then we can catch up. We don't have to prepare anything. We'll just talk.
It is a rather much simpler medium, is it not?
Yeah.
Although, let me tangent for a second. What do you make of, like, why are YouTube channels qualifying themselves as podcasts when they're clearly not just audio? To me, am I too much of a purist when I see follow my podcast? It's actually a YouTube channel, and it's a YouTube video where you're talking to somebody for an hour.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be like resentful in any way, but I'm just odd. It's a weird, or do I get too stuck in my definitions there?
It'll still be released as an audio podcast. Right. So, but and this is the way around what I was talking about earlier, which was like growing a podcast is like so organic that you need something else. So grow the podcast on YouTube. People will then start subscribing to the audio version of the podcast and listen to it in their car. That's how you find your recommendation. You get recommended because you've put out a video in a platform that works based on long form content a lot of the time. Although I've noticed recently over the last 6 months, they're like feeding up 30-second videos in my recommended. Have you noticed that?
That is the trend at the moment. Yes. I guess what were they trying to compete with TikTok? I think in that respect, I don't know.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like old content that was like 30 seconds long that would just pop up. You'd be like, man falls in hole, like just weird things like that. Like 15 years later, here we are watching man falls in hole. And so anyway, but like, a lot of the YouTube thing is like long, engaging videos. Podcasts are long and engaging. Like you can sit down and watch an interview for 30 minutes easy, Mm-hmm. So that's why it's actually a good platform for video content, which actually grows your podcast as well.
So if you've done it correctly, you should be able to cross-pollinate and drive the folks that are finding it in that medium over to the medium you want them on, or vice versa, I guess. Yeah. if you've done it correctly, organically.
Exactly. So you like through YouTube, you might be more likely to find an audience, and Whereas if you're not, that's the whole reason that I actually put the podcast clips and stuff onto YouTube.
Right. Now your Chris J. Asher channel is that's the channel I've been most familiar with for all these years. That's the one that I primarily followed. And you're right. In retrospect, it was very much like watching you experiment with different techniques, watching you teach yourself about cameras or about, composition and lighting or color grading or the technology around it.
Idea.
But it was cool to watch somebody teach themselves all of these things and not be beholden to this idea that, but I got to focus my content and I got to be in a niche and I got to follow that. No, you just kind of let that be that digital playground to get it out of your system and try different things.
Yeah. So like sometimes I'd do sketches, sometimes I'd do beer reviews, sometimes I'd do what else did I do? I don't know. Just random vlogs. Like that's what it started off as, just vlogs. And I was like, okay, I'll do it daily. And I did it I didn't do it always every day. That's you have to be a maniac, an absolute maniac to be able to do that.
Been there. Didn't like it.
No, but in the first year I did 280 videos.
Whew. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
There's only 365 days in a year. So
so I got pretty close.
Wow. That's insane.
Ranging from, like some really short ones that were like, but took a lot of effort, where I did like these speed vlogs where I would film my entire day and narrate sort of what I was doing to the camera while I was doing it, but in mid-sentence cut between the whole day and do it all in a minute.
Honestly, that's what I remember. That was the content that really locked me in, so to speak, to what you were doing, because it was so, to me anyways, and maybe it wasn't the most original thing, maybe it wasn't pioneering, but in my perspective and the ecosystem of YouTube that I found myself spending time in, you were unique in that. And to me, I was like, wow, it's like, I want to learn how the hell to do that. That's compelling. That's engaging. I love the jump shots. I love how he's coming in and out of things. And that's the one that sticks out.
Yeah, that was that. I don't think I've really seen that. So that was a pretty fun one to come up with. And then I'd do other ones where like I put a GoPro on my dog,
right,
around her collar, and then I filmed my vlog with my camera like in front of me. But then I edited the entire video from the dog's perspective of like watching me hold a camera up to myself talking.
But that's the thing. It's that freedom to be able to just express the art without any expectation or preconception of, oh, it's got to be this or it's got to be that. No, it's just that it's truly that raw artistic expression.
Yeah, so it was a lot of just experimenting with things, and that's what I mean. Like I'd go, you know what? I'll do an episode of Space Force where we overdub our voices for really badly and wear spacesuits that I bought for everyone for like $60 each. I don't know why. for a 2-minute video where we pretty much don't say anything.
I really thought you were onto something, man. I thought the Space Force stuff was going to go somewhere. Seriously. And Steve Carell just totally stole your thunder on that crap. That was you bastard.
Or then I'd just post like a clip of doing stand-up or just literally anything. And the reason, I'll come back to that now, the reason is my brother-in-law has a channel. It's quite successful. It's not in like the hundreds of thousands, but it's like 15, 20,000 subscribers, incredibly loyal subscribers. It's Doug Steele Guitar. He's a guitarist. He's an absolute killer shredder. He's been doing lessons. He's been on YouTube since about 2006 or 2008.
Right at the beginning, huh?
right at the beginning. Like, I remember him showing us the site, and it was, the logo was like the TV, the old school looking TV type logo or whatever it was. Yep. It was like brown.
Right.
So it was back in those days when he was on there.
Wow. Yeah.
And he never paid any attention to any of the algorithm stuff. He just was not into YouTube and being a YouTuber. He just made content, put it up there, and people just started finding it. Like, he wouldn't put a description, he wouldn't put tags. He'd just be like, here's how you play the Van Halen solo for this track, whatever.
Right.
250,000 views later, and like him going, oh, I'm the, getting the most views in the country in music at the moment. Like, they had little charts and stuff. He's like, oh, this month I'm number one in the country.
Well, and again, right, there's that value to being able to capitalize early when the platform's growing. When I don't even know, right? There was no such thing as tags, and there was no such thing as being able to navigate SEO back then.
Yeah.
It was just upload an MP4 file and have a nice day. Good luck.
And but that's how it always treated it. Mm-hmm. And because I'm a web developer, for those listening, as someone who's web developer marketing sort of industry, it's very frustrating to watch someone with so much potential not like utilizing some things that could help them grow exponentially, Like, I want to help. Can I please help you get to that next level? And he's like, dude, I'm playing Steve Vai right now. Shut the hell up. And also, who are you? You don't do YouTube.
Right.
So create YouTube channel. Step one.
Very, very true. Get in the market, get in the game, learn it.
Figure out how it actually works. Like, how can I give someone advice on something that I'm not doing? Like, you can't. So I need to understand what it's like to be posting videos regularly to YouTube.
So really, YouTube itself became a method of teaching yourself things. And later on down the road, you found other things that you wanted to learn, and you used the YouTube platform to kind of document that learning. But it goes all the way back to learning YouTube and understanding how to make this thing successful from that web developer's viewpoint as well.
Yeah, so that I could give advice to my brother-in-law, who's the most likely person that I know to have, like, who's on the cusp of being able to just turn it into a career in the next 12 months if he wanted. If he really, really wanted to just go, okay, I'm going to turn this into a career. The problem is, and this comes back to the passion outweighing the effort, right? If he knows himself well enough to know that if he were to do that, he would start to hate it. He would start to resent it, and he would stop doing it. So it's actually kind of like, it's taken me a long time to understand that. And it's almost like he's wise enough to know that I need to do this long term and let it happen extremely organically if I'm going to actually continue doing it and be able to, because he'll burn himself out, he'll hate it, he'll resent it, he'll quit, and it won't happen if he really, really turns it into a job.
Sure. And that's the classic story, right? And so many of us identify with that. And it's interesting to hear a real world example of that. It's almost like the thing everybody knows, but nobody wants to talk about. But here's somebody who's a perfect example of why just allow it to happen rather than go after it and chase it and try to nail it down. Sometimes
I really do think this, because the podcast that I did went for, I think I was doing it well into while I was doing the Chris J. Asher videos. So all the way up until 2017, maybe even 2018, that podcast from 2014, like years. We did, we had like a couple of breaks here and there and stuff, but we weren't doing it because we were trying to pursue a career in podcasting. We were just doing it because it was a fun thing to do, to catch up with some friends. And it stopped becoming fun because I just had to organize 3 people to be in the same room at the same time every week and a guest. And it always came down to me organizing everything. And then they'd just rock up and drink my beer that I brought in and then leave.
What did we just say, right? It becomes work.
I started resenting them a little bit for that, but
it's understandable. That makes sense. And so, all right, I got a whole bunch of stuff I want to ask you now that I'm looking at it. Okay, so let's give me lightning round. Where we're at? We're at channel number 4 for Chris J. Asher. Or is that 3?
Number 4
That's
was
3. Good Christ. Okay, so lightning round. Who's number 4?
I think number 4 would have been Rat Shit Industries.
Oh, I love the Rat Shit Industries. Oh, that occupies such a soft spot in my heart.
We want to do so many more. Oh, can I tell you one that I really want to do?
Oh man, please do.
I've got the whole thing planned out. I'll tell you now because it might never happen. You know.
Sure.
So the guy that I did those videos with is quite an unusual looking guy in a way. He can be like he's bald, he's tall, he's skinny, he's really white, and he can be quite comical looking. You know, he's a very funny looking guy. One of our favorite things that someone called him when they were reacting to these videos. Just okay, some context for people.
Yes, please. I was going to give the context.
Go for it. You give the context. I can have a sip of my coffee.
Well, because here, from the viewer's standpoint, so here all of a sudden, Chris puts in front of me this Rat Shit Industries, and it's not like spelled like rat taking a poop. It's like this, like a ratchet, right? Like a mechanical. And you think about the first time you ever saw a commercial for the Shake Weight, and you wonder to yourself, is that actually real or not? Here's Chris and his partner bringing out these absolutely absurd products. And when I say committing to the gag with a Kickstarter, with like a full-on company looking thing, and like, yep, we got a Kickstarter going, we're trying to get donations, we're very serious, and they were just some of the most absurd products ever. And I'm sorry, I giggle now. It's still so funny to me all these years later.
So yeah, we had one called, the first one that we did, which was very strategic. We had a whole bunch of ideas. The first one was called the Role Reverser. And the reason that I chose to do the Role Reverser first was because I knew that here's a little tip for people on YouTube. Controversy is like will get you a lot of views. A lot of views. So if you can get people commenting and arguing in the comments about which way is the correct way to hang a roll of toilet paper, like controversy doesn't have to be serious. You know, that's the other thing you got to remember. Controversy doesn't equal serious. So if you can get people, if you can like do something controversial, like insist so much that the toilet paper has to be hung in a certain direction, that we've devised a product that will make it do that regardless of which way it's actually hung on the hanger, then you're going to get some people going. So that was the basis of it, is like, okay, well, that's such a small problem. It's kind of part of the comedy of it, is that it's just such a small controversy, but it's one that people are very passionate about. You know, it's like which direction should you cut your toast?
Diagonal, crosswise, top
some
to bottom?
people, yeah. Like it's such a meaningless thing to be controversial, but it's something that people are very passionate about. Like if I have cheese on the bottom part of my sandwich rather than the top when you're building up a sandwich, then you've done it wrong.
But you create that innocent enough thing that people want to argue about, which generates interaction and engagement and comments and dislikes. I think a lot of just anybody out there that doesn't know it, if you're getting into it, don't worry about the dislikes. The dislikes are your friends. It's okay. It doesn't matter. I think a lot of YouTubers don't know that.
My most viewed video is also by far my most disliked video, but it's made me the most amount of money.
Yes. What was the other? There was another one too. When you and your partner were out on the street trying to sell these things to.
Yeah. So what we did was, and the whole thing was very strategic. You've got 60 days. You got 30 or 60 days to run a Kickstarter campaign. Right? Is where web developer brain kicks in. Okay. So we've got 60 days running this campaign. Now, let's see if we can make some additional content that we can post to the campaign in the description as YouTube videos, because you've got to upload the original one to Kickstarter, right? So I'm not getting YouTube views really on the original one. It's on YouTube, but it's just been published alongside the Kickstarter one. Kickstarter's where it's getting the views. So then in the description, a couple of weeks later, you follow up with a how to use the role reverser video embedded from YouTube into Kickstarter. So YouTube gives extra brownie points to views that happen on YouTube videos off YouTube, right? So if I can get the Kickstarter, which is they're promoting Kickstarter for the campaign, the 60 days, right, on Kickstarter. That's how we're going to get found. They're going to look at the embedded videos from YouTube. That's going to boost those videos on YouTube. We'll start getting more comments and stuff over there. So I'm leveraging Kickstarter to leverage. I'm using Kickstarter just to leverage our YouTube channel. That's the whole point.
And again, I thought that they were exceptionally funny. I thought it was so clever to truly get people to believe that these were real products that you folks intended to manufacture and sell.
Because Dean, whose name in the thing was Gurdon, we chose Thomas the Tank Engine names but pronounced wrong. So my name was Thomas, he was Gurdon. And like he'd actually build a prototype. So that was the other thing. Like that's what made it believable, because we put so much goddamn effort into this thing. Like how could anyone put that much effort into something that they don't intend on actually doing? Like I have to put my driver's license and verify my Kickstarter. That's the other thing. It's got to be so borderline that Kickstarter don't go, oh, this is a bit sus. They've got to believe that we've got to trick them first.
Like you just said, I just envision how much more work went into that channel and that project than maybe just about anything you've ever done.
So much more work. And then for the last one, so we always did at least one follow-up to each video because that would help us boost the views, and our follow-up would always be something that involved the general public. Right. So with that one, and this is when it really when it started to potentially, it nearly went viral, but it really started, like we were getting, 400 views an hour at one point. It was really kicking off.
Right.
And we were just glued to our phones, the stats. Oh my God, it's still going. It's getting more.
What was the second product? It's eluding me.
So the follow-up video real quick, because we would do one right towards the end, because at the end of a Kickstarter campaign, they'd have like a section for campaigns ending soon.
Okay.
So we'd get an extra boost from that. So we did one where we took it around and interviewed people on the street about what they thought of the product. And we just did really intentional bad editing from when they'd say, I think it's a terrible product. I don't know why you're trying to sell this, what you're thinking. And then we'd just cut it there And I'd say off camera, I'd be like, look, we're really trying to, get this thing off the ground. Could you just say something really nice about it? And then people just being nice people, when they're put on the spot and asked to do something, they will do it. So they'd just be like, oh yeah, it's really good. And so we'd just do a really bad edit so that you could tell that we cut that negative feedback out. And so that then creates another controversy, because to the viewers that don't understand that it's not real, they think that we're genuinely trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes.
Right.
Because there's something about people who are charading as successful when they're not that is absolutely hilarious to me.
And again, you two were so committed to the gag that I couldn't help but just be in awe. Like, how in the world is he sustaining this at this point?
So then the other ones that we did, and that one went really viral because we added another layer of controversy there, where we only spoke to Asian people on the street, but didn't say anything about it, and that just brought out some really colorful characters in the comments. Oh my god, pretty Jesus. Disgraceful, but it was still kind of funny that, like, we were just like, hey, we're in Melbourne, we're just going to talk to the locals, and then just I don't know, it's just silly. It wasn't coming from a place of like something negative. It was just like, this is just random and silly. That's why we did that,
And then what was that follow-up product? Because that's where I lost it.
The knob to handle.
Say it again.
The knob to handle, which was a door handle with a rubber, black tapered rubber knob socket. It was the official term for that element. And you'd slip it over the doorknob, and then you'd be able to use it as a handle. Basically, the whole video was dick jokes.
So. Because thank you for refreshing my memory, and now I'm not going to be able to stop thinking about it. To watch the two of you, so you essentially had what amounts to a rubber sleeve that would go over a doorknob to keep people's hands from slipping on the doorknob, because your hands are slippery. Why are your hands?
Because you had too much lotion on them in the bathroom, and you couldn't get out of the bathroom. That was the whole premise. Like, a lot of people actually said, oh, this is actually a pretty good idea for people like with arthritis who aren't able to that have the dexterity to use doorknobs and stuff like that as much. But we never really addressed any of that. We really focused on the issue being that we have too much lotion on our hands and can't get out of the bathroom.
Was it them? Because I was watching the interview on the street with the common man, and you guys are literally pumping lotion into people's hands and having them rub their hands up and go, okay, now grab this knob and try to turn it. And I'm going, you can't.
We built a doorknob on a piece of door so that they could. We're holding it. We called it a knob board, and. We were literally walking around getting people to practically test it.
And so was this another example of like where you had to do the bad editing and have somebody go, are you out of your mind? But did you just humor me? Or was that genuinely organically comical?
It was organically comical. Like, it was just like, how awkward can we make this for people, basically?
That's performance art, man.
One of my favorite ones, which you don't see in the cut, you just see her say, it's a really good invention, I think, something like that. She says, it's a really good invention. She looks really annoyed. And that's because before that, the bit that we cut out, she said, it's a really good invention, just politely. And I just sort of said to her, oh, look, could you sort of say that again just to camera? She's like, oh, it's a really good invention. I'm like, oh, just a little bit louder. She's like, it's a really good invention. I'm like, oh, sorry, I think I might have been, could you just do it one more time? Like, just to the point where she just had so much enough of it that she's just like, it's a really good invention. And that's the cut that we used. Just, I don't know why. It was just fun to mess with people. I'm a sociopath is why.
That's what it comes down to.
if there's a conclusion to this episode,
you say sociopath, I say artist. There's probably some thing in the middle there. Okay, so that's number 4. What was 5?
Number 5 is mandated oranges.
Mandated oranges. I've literally never heard of that. I talk to you multiple times a year for hours on end, and you have never said the word mandated oranges to me.
Well, so Thomas and Gurdon from Ratchet Industries, they had a whole subplot as well. Like, you started to get to know those characters, and we'd had things like foreshadowing of like before we've even done the product, we've got the idea of the product. So we'd be like, oh, I was working on a bath snorkel when I came up with this idea, and it's just like a throwaway thing. But then 2 products later, we bring out the bath snorkel. So we'd do things like that, like 6 months later. And so Thomas and Gurdon made a YouTube channel so that they could lurk in the comments section and talk to some of the people as Thomas and Gurdon undercover. And mandated oranges is an anagram of Thomas and Gurdon. We went so far down the rabbit hole on this one.
Yes, it's funny, but when I step back for a second and I look at that critically, you mentioned Tom Green as an example early on in the podcast conversation.
Yeah.
This is on that level to me, right? Like, there's so much thought and so much planning and so much effort to keep a straight face, to plan it out, to write to as much as you can, to make these ridiculous situations happen.
Oh.
What am I too old now that I'm using the word incorrectly? How meta that is, that you created a channel so that you can go incognito and comment on your own channel
as the characters as well.
As the characters. Oh, Jesus Christ. Did anything ever get uploaded to Mandated Oranges?
One video got uploaded to Mandated Oranges.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
And it is it is a very, very sexy music and an orange with water in slow motion going over it. It's just
oh my God.
It's like the ultimate food porn. It's like rolling across the ground. I'll send you the link.
I guess at this point I really do need to watch that video just so I can say I watched it. It's just like a propriety thing there.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
It's been so long since I thought about any of these things.
Where are we now? Channel 17.
Yeah. Then I've got a serious channel, which is Oink Digital, which is my business, which I haven't uploaded to in a while, but that's sort of talking about websites and marketing, and it's just very serious. So yeah, so that's just that's a targeted channel, It's
right.
Like things that I learned from my Chris J. Asher one, I would implement on that one.
And that is the full on, like, okay, no, we're not, this is a business. This is an actual, your livelihood is represented by this business channel. Yeah.
And then the last one, what's that? I think that's, yeah. I don't know how many I've got. And then I've got Podwhale, which is another business one, which I've only uploaded one video to, which is how to use a Rodecaster Pro. Again, another serious one. But again, everything that I've learnt from those other channels, like, okay, don't fill the video with fluff, Get to the point. If you're going to do a tutorial, I did a tutorial. That's the only video on that channel. I just want to have a quick look it up, because if you're going to do a tutorial, no fluff, get straight to the point and give as much useful information without repeating yourself as possible. So that's the approach that I took with that, and did a 10-minute video that takes you all the way from setting up the Rodecaster Pro, what the mic preamps do, all of that sort of stuff, all the way to transferring the recorded file, a little bit of editing the recorded file and exporting an MP3. So start to finish, how to do a podcast with this machine in 10 minutes. And oh man, that I've one video, that channel's got 131 subscribers, and that one video, just bear with me. I just want, because I haven't even looked at it.
Sure.
It's had a lot of views for like a channel with only one video on it.
That's the weird oddity of the YouTube ecosystem, in that something like that can exist and have its own weird level of success, despite the fact that it doesn't conform to anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, it does, because it's very targeted. So it's had like 1,200 and something views. So it's not much, but for a channel that's only got one video on it.
Right. It's pretty good.
And it's got loads of thumbs up and all of that sort of stuff. And it's just because I picked a niche, set out to make a really useful video, set out to make a really engaging thumbnail, because it's my business. I was able to allocate part of my work day to, this is my job right now. So when I treat it as, here's part of my 9 to 5, and from all afternoon on this day for my business, I'm going to put together a piece that is really informative, a little bit of a marketing piece to create awareness of Podwhale. And you know, it's free. So we've got it in front of, 1,200 odd eyes, over the last 6 or 8 months or whatever. It's just trickling in views,
Sure. As people, like you said, it's niche, it's targeted. So there's folks specifically searching for that thing, or finding that thing and clearly finding it useful.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because it's so different than the rest of your
mandated oranges. But that's what I mean. It's like, that's what I used the Chris J. Asher channel to learn, like I did how to ride a Harley Davidson specifically, in parentheses specifically, which is my most viewed video, which has well over 100,000 views. Probably over 1,000 by now. I haven't had a look, but probably over 1,000 thumbs down by now, because it was just a piss take of like how to ride a Harley. It was one of those, is he being serious, or like, is he being, it was sort of it was early before the Thomas and Gurdon thing. And I was like, oh, there's something in this.
It's I remember that one because there was like a subset that how to clean the Harley, and I remember that being a bit of a, what the F is he talking about? That is not how you clean a motorcycle.
Oh, I never cleaned it. That's the thing. I just get drunk in the video, or pretend to get drunk in the video, and we didn't have a bucket, so we're just like, now you just got to imagine that it's clean, and I'm like burping and stuff.
That's again part of that natural tendency you have to go for that quirky, ironic kind of comedy that you're always able to kind of weave into these different things that you do.
It's a lot of fun. Like I think the Ratchet Industries thing is easily the most fun thing that we've done. That Dean and my co-writer and co-host, or whatever you call it,
right?
It's the most fun thing that we've done together. He was on that first podcast with me. He was the one that said, "Oh, let's do a YouTube channel." I went, "Let's do a podcast. I'm going to be doing all the work." But at least with Ratchet Industries, yeah, I did all of the video stuff, but he had to build the bloody prototypes. So it was at least fair and balanced then. Like he'd actually spend like time figuring out getting the materials, painting a bath snorkel with his wife going, "What are you doing?"
I remember hearing about the reaction from the spouse as well on a lot of it. And it's really interesting to see how you have utilized the YouTube platform in so many different ways for so many different reasons. that you think about YouTubers, YouTube creators, and we're all doing the same thing in terms of, I'm trying to get my voice out there. I'm here to present this thing that I want the world to see, and I want to gain some kind of recognition for it. But what you've done is you have utilized the platform in lots of different ways that had nothing to do with getting famous or getting recognition. Some of it was testing and proving ground. Some of it was just hobby to upload a thing that I know I wanted to share. And I'm fascinated because all the time I've known you, I've not ever considered how you have used YouTube differently than almost anybody else I know.
Thank you. I don't know. I just remembered another channel.
Where this is the ninth child that he forgot that he birthed.
No, this might be the eighth. I think the
eighth. This is the eighth.
Yeah. Because I remember counting. Because this is like a channel that I plan on uploading to, but I don't know. Like, because I've got another podcast as well. So I've done multiple podcasts over the years too. So we haven't even touched on that. We only
there's so much more that we're going to have to. I mean, we're going to have no choice. We're going to have to come back and circle back at some point, and pick up more of this stuff, because I did not realize the scope of your YouTube experience. I had no idea, and easily we filled an hour of conversation on that. When I know I wanted to talk to you about
it's
podcasting,
all YouTube, hasn't it? Yeah,
it is. I wanted to talk to you about podcasting, about stand-up comedy, about web design. I wanted to talk to you about this wide range of things, but there is a wide range of things, and you've managed to do them all on YouTube, which is cool.
Jack of all trades, master of none, right here.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I like you.
I'll just give you the quick. I'll give you the very quick rundown.
Give me that last one.
Podcast, digital marketing podcast, that when I was growing my business, me and my mate, who's an absolute gun marketer, we went, look, let's create content, because content and business equals good, right?
Right.
So we did these digital marketing podcasts where we'd anyway, I'll talk about that another time. And the reason that we started a channel recently is we've done a couple of those podcasts in VR. So on a platform called AltSpace. And that's a whole other thing that we can talk about, because that's where it's at. That's where it's headed. I really, really think that VR is sort of where it's headed. And it's an amazing place to create content and all of that sort of stuff. So maybe we'll talk about that next time. And then the other one was the Drunk Dial Lockdown podcast that I did during our lockdown, our first lockdown, not our long 100-day second lockdown, the one that I thought would last for a week. And I thought I'll do a podcast every day for this. And then after 38 episodes, I was like, okay, I'm tired of this.
It became work, so it's no longer fun.
It was just like doing it daily as well. And you were on that one. You've been on quite a few of those things. You were on the Bath Snorkel. You've made a cameo on Ratchet Industries channel.
Yes,
You've been on Chris J. Asher channel, I'm sure, somewhere. Have you?
We crossed paths so many times. In fact, what it really was, and I can't believe I'm remiss in bringing this up. It was the Tide Pods was really where you and I connected hard on that Tide Pods nonsense.
Yeah.
So you did a video at the blow up moment of these moronic kids on YouTube eating Tide Pods, and you wrote this song, "Don't Eat the Tide Pods." Yeah, and I was like, that was so cool.
Yeah. No, it was, I'm going to eat some Tide Pods, #subscribe pods.
Right. Okay. Right. So you were saying the hell with it, and you're doing these like really inappropriate visuals of like holding a bucket of Tide Pods up over your mouth and letting them fall on your face. And I'm going, wow, he's out there. Okay. Wow, that's crazy.
That was like my step into trying to do one of those. You know how what are those ones called where they're like not reaction videos, but like a commentary style video with comedy in it and like a little sketch in it and just talking about like, yeah, I liked doing that, but again, so much effort.
Well, and it was, to me, it was massive because that was the first time that I looked at somebody's content and said, I want to react to that. Like the reaction was a thing for a long time. And it was a period of time where you would say to somebody, post your reaction video in the comments below. That was a thing. And I never really, that was just, yeah, that was kind of like, that's adolescent to me. I'm not, I'm a grown ass man. I don't care about putting a reaction.
Okay. I remember another channel.
Okay. Oh, he's got it. All right, hold on. Let me finish this story, and then we'll talk about the child that you had when you were undercover in another country. And I took the character that I played, that I still kind of play on internet radio all those years ago, and I remixed your song. I can't believe you gave me permission to butcher and remix your song. It was horrible. And but it was very liberating to me. It was a very the wrong word is transcendent, but that's the only word I can think of right now. And so I remixed it and I put a little electric guitar on there, and I said, "Don't eat the Tide Pods." And mixed in, and I'm dancing around, and I'm in a Target store. And I'm filming in character, in costume, and I'm pointing at the bucket of Tide Pods and shaking my head, no, don't do it. And ironically, actually, that is how I met T-Cat, was because there was, and I talked to him about this on.
He did one as well. He animated that video, that song, when it got more views than probably both of ours combined.
And when you gave me permission to use, and again, we talked about this on Travis's episode, but you gave me permission to use your video, I used the portion that had his animation in it. Yeah. And I get this comment from some guy I don't know going, gee, I recognize that animation. I drew that.
Oh, really?
And I was mortified, and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, I just stole somebody's copyright. What am I doing? And here we are years later. I've forged a friendship with Travis now.
I didn't know that's how you guys met.
That's how we met. Was that stupid Tide Pods video.
Oh, that's too funny. He's great.
He's a great dude. And I loved his episode, by the way. If you're listening to this, if you're still here an hour and change later, listening to this, please go back and listen to the T-Cat episode. He's such an awesome dude.
Yeah.
Chris, we have so much more to talk about, but well, we're gonna have to come back, buddy. We're gonna have to come back and do this again, because I got more ground I want to cover, but I think we've tested everybody's patience to its limits. No, it's been fantastic. I really appreciate you spending this time. I appreciate all of the advice and the ideas and everything. I mean, you're a solid friend. I treasure you, my friend, and thanks for being on the show today.
And you too. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
All of the stuff that Chris does is going to be down in the description here. I invite you to check out these 17,000 different channels. I invite you to stick around after the episode. Over on Patreon, you'll be able to hear the story of the bastard 9th child that Chris completely forgot about. You can get that exclusively over on Patreon as well. All right, that's going to do it for Project Creator today. If you want to be a guest on the show and have your story told to the world, get in touch, and we will speak to you again next time. Thanks so much, Chris. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.